Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Pulp Crazy. I'm your host, Jason Aiken. Before getting into this week's story, I wanted to point out an interview I posted on the Pulp Crazy website. I interviewed D.L. Suharski, the writer and creator of Legends of Log. It's a sword and sorcery comic book that is currently running a Kickstarter campaign to fund the production of the giant-size 2015 annual. DL was kind enough to answer my questions about it and provided some cool preview art. If you're a fan of Conan or other sword and sorcery characters, this looks to be right up your alley. So be sure to check that out on pulpcrazy.com. I included the links to the Kickstarter campaign and the Legends of Log website in the interview post there. Now, this week's story featured is not really a pulp tale, although it was written by a breakout pulp writer who later became a well-known science fiction writer. The story is Rastignac the Devil by Philip Jose Farmer. The story first appeared in the May 1954 issue of Fantastic Universe, a digest-sized science fiction magazine. The story is now readily available online, as it has fallen into the public domain. Rastignac the Devil takes place in the same shared universe as Farmer's groundbreaking science fiction story, The Lovers, as well as the follow-up, Moth and Rust. Both The Lovers and Moth and Rust appeared in Startling Stories, a science fiction pulp magazine. Rastignac the Devil acts as a prequel to The Lovers. It was suggested by Art Sippo for me to read Rastignac the Devil prior to reading The Lovers, then finish up with Moth and Rust. I hold Art's recommendations in high regard, so I started with Rastignac the Devil. I will include links in the show notes to free ebooks and audiobooks for this public domain story. Rastignac the Devil takes place in the 25th century on an alien world that has been settled by interstellar French pioneers. They left Earth in the 23rd century to find an inhabitable Earth-like planet to settle on. The planet they discovered was dubbed New Gaul. The settlers came down to the planet's surface in rockets and left their 6 spaceships in orbit around the planet. When arriving on New Gaul, the humans found that 2 species of sentient life already called the planet home. The reptilian Sasaurs and the amphibian Amphibs. Neither race had any concept of war or poverty. The native races allowed the Terrans to stay as long as they became natural and followed the native customs. Both the Sasaurs and the Amphibs are egg layers. An interesting monarchy was established. Each race was ruled over by a king of a different species. These kings were assisted by dukes and duchesses of the same race the kings ruled over. Another important part of the story is the concept of skins. The artificial skins are what made the universal peace on the planet of New Gaul possible. These skins were put on babies at birth. They fed off the blood of the host and grew along with their host. The skins were controlled by a larger master skin that was located in the Palace of Rulers. This gave the kings control over the minds and emotions of the entire population of the planet. People who didn't wear skins were called devils. Hence the title of this story, Rastignac the Devil. John Jacques Rastignac, and apologies for all those French speakers out there for butchering that name, is the main character of the story. It opens with him skinless and in jail for preaching the philosophy of violence. His greatest wish is to leave the planet and explore the stars in one of the spaceships orbiting New Gaul. He's broke out of jail by his Sassor childhood friend, a giant named Mapfarity. They take with them an amphib changeling, which is a human raised by amphibs, named Lucine. Farmer did a great job in building this unique world. He has some very interesting concepts in regards to the monarchy of the planet, as well as the planet's economy. Not to mention the overall unusual customs of the planet. One scene I really liked was the introduction of an automobile of sorts. But instead of wheels, it had the hooves of a team of horses, and the nervous system to go with it. I think Farmer introduced so many cool concepts and customs in this relatively short tale that he ran out of room. The story progresses pretty quickly, but if things were spread out more, I think this could have been turned into a full-length novel and explored the world and its inhabitants in a more complete manner. I have heard Farmer wasn't happy with how this story turned out due to editorial changes, but the only complaint I can really muster is that I wish it just would have been a little bit longer. I still highly recommend this though. It's a cool story and has some great ideas. I'm not much of a science fiction guy, but I really enjoyed this. I'll definitely be continuing this series and plan to both review The Lovers as well as Moth and Rust on Pulp Crazy. Christopher Paul Carey suggested that I read both in the original Startling Stories issues, so I'm going to take his advice. I purchased both at Pulp Fest 2 years ago, and they've been sitting on my shelf unread for too long. So keep an eye out for those episodes later this year, or possibly next year. I'm gearing up for October, which means a month of Weird Tales themed episodes, so I'm not sure when I'll be able to start reading The Lovers. Well, that's it for this week's episode. Pulp Crazy is located at pulpcrazy.com. I'm at Pulp Crazy on Twitter, and facebook.com/pulpcrazy. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/pulpcast. You can also email me at pulpcrazy@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.